Did you hear that? This meeting is wow, that's new to me. Maybe that's a new feature. All right, get my volume all set here, my view correctly. Okay. All right. So welcome everybody. My name is Jason. You've probably looked around the site, but this is a class. Oh, hey, I've already talked with you. It's nice to see you. But I just wanted to give an intro, answer any questions that you might have, and then I'll post a link to this in announcements so people who are missing it. But I just want you to feel good and like you know what I expect out of this semester. And we don't have a whole semester, right? So I think this week is week 5 of the regular semester. I'm pretty sure CSU started at the same time. I also teach there in person, and I'm doing online for CU. Woohoo! And the class that always fills up, the drug class. I wonder why this class always fills up. And we even opened up a second section of it. And that's because human beings seek altered states, right? From the time when we're little kids and we're spinning in circles, falling over, and then getting up again, to the time people are walking out of the bar looking the same. So this is a really interesting class. I think there's lots of cool material, and to be able to teach a special class or a specific class like this is fantastic. So you've probably looked around the class already. Let me talk about a few things here. First of all, discussions. Okay, so there's different discussion topics. I think there's 5 main topics. There's an observation at the beginning and an observation at the ending. So one of the things that I'm trying to do is train us to be sociologists. Okay, I'm assuming most of us like people watching, yes, or at least you're probably professional people watchers by now. Huckle, be chill. That's my dog, Huckle. He senses something is not right on the farm. Anyway, we're going to take those people watching skills and we're going to turn them into sociological knowledge, right? We're going to know what we're observing from a lot of different perspectives and what. Hey, let him out. Sorry about that.
I got it.
Oh, you got it? Thanks. When it comes to discussions, the social observation is just going someplace for 20 minutes, or you could do this, you could like observe people someplace through an online feed as well, right? Whether it's an eating place, a drinking place, and just observe people for 20 minutes, and then you're writing a discussion post about it, okay? And then there's one at the end of the semester. And when we kind of compare what we've learned from the beginning of the semester, just how we observe, the tools that we get this semester to be able to do that. And that's really important when looking at drug policy, right? When looking at what's going on with human beings and their relationships with drugs, particularly in this culture. So we want to know what we're seeing, why, and back it up with data from as many perspectives as possible. But that does not need to be posted a week in advance. The other discussions do need to have their first post a full week of the due date. Okay, so if the due date is the 10th, then by the 3rd, and they're always on Thursdays, you'll have to make that post. And the reason is, it's like almost every time people will post all their posts in the last day, right? And that's just the way it goes. But then at that point, you're kind of commenting stuff. You're not really, you're not actually engaging in a back and forth conversation. So for those, your first post has to be done a week in advance. There's some really cool things. There's a couple TED Talks. There's a documentary that the first one might be American Drug War, which is sort of all about the war on drugs and really the failure that it's been and how it got started. And I think it's really interesting. So we'll be discussing back and forth with each other. You have to make at least 3 posts on at least 3 different days. I think these are really interesting videos, so you'll be able to do more than that. And more is always great, right? Like most of my students will write, if I say a 4-page paper, they'll write 3 3/4 pages. But if you do a little bit more, always usually more in depth, always better. So discussions are easy. They're easy points. It's usually asking for your opinion. You can relate it to the text, making some observations from what you've learned. But overall, I definitely want to make sure that you're posting on different days, posting early, and just getting involved and staying involved with the class. Because it's like, how do you do well in this class? You really do well in this class by going to Canvas often, by posting often, by reading the stuff, by making sure that you're engaged in the class, okay? All right, so those are discussions. The content assignments, I think there could be a content assignment coming up for this Friday. Is that right? Yep. So it's over chapter 1, and the textbook is required. If you click on the, the resource tab, it should be there already. Course materials, I guess is what it's called. And then it's a Sage book, but I work with that publisher with a lot of different textbooks. They're awesome. So if you can't get access, email me and I'll put you in contact with our book rep. She's an awesome human being. And they're always really fast at helping us out. So if you don't have access yet, if you're having trouble with any of that, reach out to me, because that's the best way you can succeed in this class this semester, is to stay in contact with me, right? Like if you fall off the face of the planet for a couple weeks, if you don't do some assignments, that's not the end of the world. But if you think that I'm going to judge you, which I won't, and you just don't reach out, and then it's the end of the semester, even though things are kind of all over the place a bit with COVID, due dates, or people get sick, or this, like, you have sort of a different vibe, right, to school. There's still a beginning and still an ending. So just stay in touch with me, and I'll be able to help you as much as possible. Okay, so for the content assignments are in an essay format. It's several different questions about the chapter that we're reading. And we're reading about all sorts of things: drug policy, our culture, like I said, we're examining our relationship with drugs in this society. And we'll also look sort of globally too. So I'm loading this here really quick, the assignment. And I have all sorts of information about it, but I just kind of want to break it down again. Number it. So number 1, so when you go to write it, number 1. And then instead of thinking of this as one big long essay with 4 questions, it's just easier to do that when I'm grading, as we're like approaching each one separately. So you're not going to have really an intro and a conclusion for each one. But even though they're only worth 10 points now, the 2 exams here, they're not really traditional exams, right? I'm not into that ABCD, right? True or false, regurgitate that information. You're not going to retain that. And although, I might do lots of things. I own a 4-acre farm, and my son's names are Storm and Zion, and I probably seem like a big hippie, but retention is the most important thing. So to do that, we're going to have to rehearse things correctly time and time again. So cramming material and then regurgitating it in a time test, that's not going to serve us well, right? I want you to know this information because I think this information is critical. If we're looking at policing, if we're looking at incarceration rates, if we're looking at profiling, if we're all the things that we can look at about our relationship in this culture with drugs, I think it's all really important. So we're discussing it. You're writing essays on it. Okay. And then those essays, although they're just worth 10 points a piece, they're worth 25 points a piece on the essay exam. And there'll be many of these same questions, like exactly. So you're writing a good essay, and I'll just tell people time and time again, add more detail, add more depth, add more insight. Okay. So for these essays, make them detailed. Okay. Every single essay has to have in-text citations, MLA or APA, whatever you're comfortable with. Okay. And it has to be in text, right? So it won't get graded if it isn't supported with one of those formats inside every question, at the end of every question, however that citation format might be. Okay. Also, this is sociology. So if this is sociology, is it okay to include your own personal insight? Absolutely. Right? If you have an opinion about this, whatever drug policy we're talking about, or maybe it's psilocybin and what we're doing in Colorado with looking at PTSD, right? And can psilocybin, can microdosing and things like that really improve a person's life? If we're going to look at that, we want to look at it with data, right? Because again, anything that we're looking at, it's not like we're guessing here. So you're supporting it with data. Yes, you can use some outside sources if you want. Most of these questions you should be able to answer with the textbook, which is absolutely required. Okay. And I know that it's easy to go online and find answers to these questions anywhere, or data that would lead you to answers. But we don't know that that's peer-reviewed material. We don't know that that's solid. So you start with your textbook as a solid source, in-text citations every question, and then you can go on from there if you find another source or a documentary or something that you want to add to that, okay? The instructions for this are in the content assignments themselves, but maybe half a page, 3/4 a page, several sentences. Don't just answer it in like points, like answer it in full sentences, essays, even though they don't need a conclusion and in an intro, and just be as detailed as possible. All right. Any questions about discussions or content? Yes.
So for discussions, I know that they have to be posted a week in advance. So are all the discussions going to be like the first one where you post one a week like before and then after? Or is it
Yes.
just like the for the normal
No,
discussions? Is it just,
for a normal discussion, it'll be in this. Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Sorry about that. It'll be in the same format though.
no. Okay.
So
Okay.
now,
So
and
we
some of
post
them are going to
one a week.
overlap because of our time constraints. So you always want to see if, like I said, if it's due on the 10th, you want to post your first one on the 3rd. But that next Thursday, because discussions are always like starting or ending on a Thursday, you also want to make sure that that's not the start, or maybe it is of another one, right, of the next discussion. And I'll post links for that announcement just to remind people. But I think these are easy points, but it's also easy to forget about it if you're not logging on a bunch. If you're logging on and participating, these are points that should definitely help you manifest the grade that you want to. Does that answer that?
Yeah. Okay. So we do post one a week in advance and then also on the due date.
Well, you don't have to post on the due date, but you have to post at least 1 week in advance for your first post. And then you have to have at least 2 other posts, but they have to be on different days.
Okay.
So you could post the last day, but if you post your first post a week in advance and then go and try and make all of your posts on the last day, you're not going to earn full points.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. There's 3 posts in total.
Yeah. And I think oftentimes with these conversations, people are making way more than that, right? Like you get into a conversation back and forth and you probably got 10 posts. That's easy for me to grade. Did you meet that deadline? Did you engage in that conversation? And was it not all at the last minute? So good question. Any other questions about, and the social observations though, they're not like that. It's kind of one at the beginning by that due date, not a week in advance, and one at the end. So those are they're not really as detailed ultimately, and you don't have to reply to other people for the social observations. So they're not worth as much or as detailed as the discussions. So that's why. Any other questions about content assignments? All right, make sure if you're using APA or MLA, whatever that might be, that it's consistent throughout it. And at the end, you'll have to have a works cited with at least the textbook listed, so that information is not missing. If I see it in text, you have to refer to it at the end so that I know what you're doing. Yes.
Okay, so for the content assignments, do you want us to read like the entire chapter, like an entire chapter a week, like cover to cover?
Yep. And then there's a break, right? Like we're going to do that for several weeks, and then the essay exam is open, and for like a week or that 2-week period, you won't be, right?
Okay.
And then after that, so that you can do the exam, and then after that you will be. But because we're reduced by 25% of the semester, because this is a late start, it's going to be pretty much that pace. And then there's nothing due, I don't think, spring break, so that kind of takes out another week basically of stuff. And you can always submit online at any time. You can respond to discussions over spring break. Doesn't matter to me, whatever that might be. And discussions, your first post could be made at any time. If you enjoy the video and you're on the first discussion and you have time and you want to go to the next discussion and watch that film or whatever that is and make your first post, it could be further than a week in advance if you want. I just really want this course to be flexible. And I also don't want any one particular assignment to mean that you can't do well in this class. Okay. So that's why I want to set you up for success ahead of time with this. Now, I will be lecturing from time to time over some specific things, but not necessarily on every chapter. Like there won't necessarily be a PowerPoint that's going to be, a weekly lecture or a time that we meet. I might do some, and I will eventually do some in-person discussions, right, of a certain topic. But again, my expectation is going to be that would be announced a couple weeks in advance, and hopefully we could get a number of people involved. But the reason you're taking this class is for flexibility. So it's never required that you're going to have to do something at a certain time, because really that's the point of this class, is for you to have that. Okay, so there's a drug project. And it's not a recreational drug project, it's an actual project. And it's like a creative piece. So I'm not going to explain it too much now, but it's worth 150 points. And instead, because you're writing essays all semester long, I'm always looking for new ways for people to learn, and also for people to teach people about what we're learning about, right? Drug policy, because a lot of people take this class, and sociology in general, you're not just learning about drug laws or teenage pregnancy or racism and what that looks like, and collecting data so that you can be like, oh, that's interesting. We're doing that in sociology so that we do something with that, right? Usually to make a positive change, usually to change the dynamics of teenage pregnancy or to change drug policy so that cannabis and heroin aren't scheduled in the same scheduling, right? Like something that would then lead to less people being incarcerated. And then you could, from different perspectives, make the argument that we'd be a much stronger economy, right? If we were incarcerating as many people. So look, we're going to look at this from all sorts of perspectives. But again, sociology is one of those things that I think we're doing this class because people are interested and passionate about it. So the drug project is, it can be a video, it can be a PowerPoint, it can be a Prezi presentation, it can be a video blog or whatever, about a topic, specific topic. And then instead of writing another paper, which I feel like you do plenty of already, and that is really important. It's really important. If you graduate college and can't express yourself in a written way, that's going to be troublesome. So that's one of the reasons we do a lot of writing, right? It's really important. But the other thing is, I want you to be creative. I want you to be able to do some projects in this class that you're interested in, instead of just what I'm telling you you should know. So that drug project, take a look ahead. I don't think it's due till April, but that's going to be like that, right? I mean, time is going to fly this semester. So work on the content, do your social observation before next Tuesday. I think that's when that's due. Look at the first discussion, start to manage this stuff, read chapter 1, okay? Because it's already Wednesday. That first essay is due that weekend. And if you turn in something late, it's a few point deduction. Ultimately, this first time around, people are getting their textbooks. If you're turning this thing in this weekend, I'm fine with that, okay? I don't want people to be rushed if you don't have that. If you're ordering like a real textbook, if you're using these materials, the course materials, they should be available to you right now. That being said, other things, the big paper, exams, again, some things are in flux, but at the beginning, my job isn't to like take your paper and be like, 1 or 2 points out of 10, you did a horrible job. My job is to cultivate your writing, help you and assist you where I can with your learning, help us reinforce the correct things time and time again so that you retain this material, right? And then maybe you go out and do something really interesting with the world with it, and that impacts somebody's life in a really positive way. No, that's always the hope, I think, with sociology. Okay. Also, there's a food drive in this class. The food drive takes place. I'll get a link. I think it's the Hope Pantry, and that's in Boulder County. So even if you're not there, but this is through CU, I wanted it to be relevant to the county that you're in. I do big food drives with my classes here at CSU. We collected over $18,000 last year. And we won an award for service for doing that. And that provided over 36,000 meals. So you don't need to write another paper for extra credit. We're going to have a food donation piece. When you see that link, yeah, I think it's worth 25 points if you can donate a minimum of $5 to that Hope Pantry. So it'll be our class. Our classes will be working together to raise, as much as we can to feed people in our community. I also believe that we can only do so much sociology online or in a classroom with 4 walls when all of it really, right? Like all of sociology is happening out there. So food insecurity is a big thing for me. For the last 15 years I've been teaching, my whole entire time teaching, feeding people has been my jam. Or maybe I'm too old to say that. Maybe I should, or maybe that's too outdated. Maybe I should say feeding people is like my vibe. No, I've got a 16-year-old and a 14-year-old. So if I can use a term wrong, I do. I was wearing a suit last week and I'm like, look, guys, I'm dripping. They're like, no, that's not how you use that term. So anyway, we're going to feed people, and that's going to be worth extra credit. If you can't afford that minimum $5 donation, you can write a paper about food insecurity in Northern Colorado, and we'll talk about that. But usually as a class, we come together, and I combine that with my CSU classes, and we do amazingly awesome work and make a huge impact. So this class, I think, will also help you have that ability to make an impact in your community in a positive way and earn some extra credit. All right, so there's a handful of us here. What questions do you have about the course right now? If any, and then I'll just stop talking for a second. I have a 4-acre farm. I teach environmental sociology as well. Grow a ton of organic food here. We have 110 chickens. My My dad is 81 and just moved to Fort Collins. It's the first town he's lived in his whole life besides our hometown in Illinois. So I'm a Bulls fan, yes, and a Bears fan. And my gear isn't around here. So we're building him a house on our 4-acre farm, just a small 700 square foot place. So I teach classes on the family and deviance and environmental social 100 in this drug class. I want to be as available to you as possible. I'm a huge Star Wars fan, so I collect a lot of Star Wars toys. Oh, that's right. Oh, you can see the one behind me. That's the Mandalorian ship. Oh, yes. Oh, that's, yep. It's ridiculous. Anyway, that's what I'm into. Toys and the farm and teaching sociology, and my 2 teenagers, and my partner Julie is an artist. She's a fantastic human being. You might have seen her let the dogs out or something like that during this meeting. Any questions whatsoever you have about this class? The pace of it, anything else? It's about a chapter per week. Anything? Nope. Now's your chance.
You said that you'd be giving some lectures on certain chapters, but only specific ones?
Like really like on topics, I'll give a lecture about a policy breakdown or something that's going on, like I said, in Colorado with maybe cannabis or psilocybins, things like that. But I'm not going to be lecturing too much formally on the chapters, like through PowerPoint for this class.
And those will just be through Zoom or?
Yeah, those will be posted. And I don't know if I posted a link to the YouTube channel that I have. I have a YouTube channel just where I put up the links to this so that people can have those accessible, or to a description of a project, something like that. So you can find those there, but I'm always going to put them in announcements. It's really a great question, actually, because the first place that you should always go to when you log on to Canvas is announcements. Really links. I think I did one already about this meeting, social observation link, a link to the chapter 1 content, things like that. So yeah. And I'll make an announcement about that, about when I would do that, or just release the video and the link itself so that you have access to it. Like your cat. All right, anything else? Yes.
So are the questions on the essay exam going to be taken directly from the content assignments?
Many of them are. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that those things are open for a couple hours, essay exams, and then technically you may be able to open them a second time. I don't want time to be a problem or problematic. I just want people to be able to, like I said, we get retention and we learn this material by rehearsing it correctly multiple times. So we're watching a video on it, we're talking about it, you're reading it in the chapter, you're writing a content assignment on it. And then the benefit is, the more in-depth your essays are from week to week, the less you'll have to do when you get to the exam. So it's worth, not cutting corners weekly, because then you will end up using those. There may be a few questions that are not from the content, but I just see that there's a lot more value in using the questions that you already have, that you know are correct, that you've done some research for, and then adding to them a bit. Does that make sense? Awesome. Any other questions? These are all good thoughts. We're going to roll in. It's going to seem, I think, kind of fast. And so it's easy to miss some deadlines early here. So try not to do that. And that's just because, like I said, we are missing exactly, this is our 5th week. So we're missing exactly 25% of the semester, which I don't think is too big of a deal. I think you'll be fine, but stay in contact with me. Send me emails if you need clarifications, if you want to Zoom meet. If you think you're missing something, if you have an idea for the project or any of these content assignments or your discussion, you want to bounce it off me, or if a link isn't working, whatever that might be. All right, does that make sense? Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to this semester. I'll put this link up after I record it in announcements, and I'll leave you the same way I leave all my classes. Be good people, do good things. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Peace. I think this class is going to be a fun time.
Thank you.
Yep. Take care.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.